everybody, this is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming miniature video. In this video, we are going to be talking a little bit about the epic Black Powder, the Waterloo campaign, new release, right? So they're taking pre-releases at this time, but I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive. I've recently come into some pictures. They have sent me a trade pack which included a ton of high-res pictures, and I'm going to be able to zoom into those and take a look at those really closely. Plus, there's been a price change, so I just want to let you know about that. Also, I have pre-ordered a bundle, just so you know. Now, when that's going to be delivered, I still don't know that yet. But if it's anything like last year, I remember somewhere around November, there was a pre-release, and then around January, I think it was, is when it was actually released. And then every couple of months, they had a wave of additional figures and what they were. Hopefully they do the same thing, but I don't know. So let me just tell you something. Okay, this video is going to go on a long time, okay? Maybe an hour, you know. I'm going to do my best to edit out stuff that is not important, but just hear me out on this first initial statement here. I am really excited about this. I haven't been this excited about anything in a long time, right? Let me just show you how excited about this I am. All right, that should tell you exactly how excited I am about this. If you've been following my channel for the last few years, I don't think anyone's ever seen me this excited. Now, having said that, I have a lot of criticisms. I have a lot of criticisms, and we'll be going over each of my criticisms. Yeah, let me just go ahead and touch on these criticisms before we actually get into this video. One, the scale is not one of the popular scales. It is its own scale. I think that's stupid. Every criticism I have, obviously, I think is bad for this project. The release, my understanding, the Waterloo campaign release, is going to have eventually all the Waterloo units. Okay, that's great. Or units that you can proxy into other units, and we'll be getting into that in a little bit. So you're going to have the British, the Brunswickers, the Hanover, Nassau, did I say Prussians? You know, Prussians. You're going to have French, obviously. You're going to have the Grenadiers. You're going to have all the different cavalry units, the Dragoons, the Lancers, the Scots Greys. You're going to have all of that. But that is still extremely limited on what you can do with this Black Powder set. The Napoleonic period is huge. You know, it goes on from the Egyptian desert, you know, all the way up to Waterloo. So you got the Russian campaign, you have Austrians, Italian campaign, you've got the Peninsula campaign, you've got Egypt, like I mentioned. There's all these minor countries, Bavaria and Sax, you know, the Saxons and there's too many to mention. Okay, and so what that means is maybe there's players out there that play Austrians, let's just say, and they see this epic Black Powder and they say, oh, I already play Austrians. I've got 15 millimeter, or maybe I've got 28 millimeter. But if they have 15 millimeter, they could go, oh, all I got to do is rebase this, and then maybe I could also play black powder in 15 millimeter and play the epic, game or whatever. I can just rebase them, and they can't do that. Because, and we're going to go over the scale of the figure, but they advertise it as 13.5, which they're saying that's from the eye to the toe, which if you give that another 1.5 millimeters above, you do get 15 millimeter to the top of the head, but that's not how miniatures are measured. Miniatures are measured from the brim of their hat, which is usually directly above their eyes, to the toe. And so if it is 15 millimeters on most of your metals that you already have, which then gives you about 16 or 17 millimeters, maybe even 18, because some of my old Glory models were 18 millimeters. And then you're looking at a 15 millimeter tall figure. And you can see that is a big difference between models, right? So you've got these giant Austrians against these short French or other epic scale models. Right? So I think all they needed to do was just up it 1.5 millimeters. They could expand it just a hair, and they would have had 15 millimeter models, or at least a millimeter closer, and that would allow all those guys playing Russians and early war Peninsula, or Spanish and Portuguese. All these guys would have been able to rebase their models if they were so inclined, and they would be able to play this rule set. They would be more in, let me rephrase that. They could rebase anyway, and they can use their armies anyway in 15 millimeter. That's not a problem. But that's not what, as a business, that's not what you want. You want them to desire your models. Maybe I have a Peninsula War army, right? And then this epic Waterloo comes out, and it's 15 millimeter, just like my armies. And I go, damn, I could buy this set, and I could expand my collection. Hell yeah! And then I'll jump on it. But when it's a unique scale, Games Workshop, when it's a unique scale, people are going to go, it's not 15 millimeter. I'm not going to get involved. So they're shooting themselves in the foot, is what I'm saying. They should have upped it to 15 millimeter. Having said that, I don't have any of these Napoleonic models in my hand to compare them to my Old Glory 15s. What I'm going to do is open up these Old Glory 15s, and we're going to measure them on camera, because I want to know exactly how big these guys are. Because this is the new Old Glory 15s, not the old Glory 15s. My old Glory 15s were giants. They were like 18 millimeters. Or in the old days, we used to call that epic scale, right? Or what do they call it? Yeah, epic. We used to call it like epic scale 15s, which were 18. So now they're taking it and calling it epic battles. But is it 15s? No. So we're going to have to take a look at that. Also, we're going to also take a look at base sizes. I think they screwed the pooch on base sizes. I have positive thoughts about base sizes, and I have negative thoughts about base sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to break this video up into chapters. You're going to see the chapters in the bar there, and you can just scroll over the progress bar, and it'll tell you what each of the chapters are. One of them is going to be scale. One of them is going to be base sizes. Another one is going to be talking about flag sizes, because my understanding is a 15 millimeter. Now, this is all based on their Civil War epic, which might or might not be the same scale as the Waterloo campaign, but I suspect it is. The standards in ACW were too short to handle a 15 millimeter flag. So, because a 13 millimeter flag is this big and a 15 millimeter flag is this big, you would now, when I played Napoleon's battles, that was the case at that time as well. And I had to, what I would do is I would put the top of the flag at the bottom of the spear point or the eagle or whatever. And then the bottom of the flag, because it would cover their hand usually, I would just cut a little strip and let it cover the hand. And when you crinkle up the flag anyway, you don't really see that, and you get a big 15 millimeter flag. But I'm going to talk about how I plan to resolve that with these plastics, because I already have a solution for this. So we're going to talk about flags. We're going to talk about model building. We're going to talk about glue and flock and bases and converting and stuff like that as part of this video. A lot of it, I'm super excited about this. So you know that if this is my standard level of enthusiasm, if my concerns are down here and it's low below average, I've got some concerns that are really bringing my opinion of the Epic Black Powder down. But then I have a lot of positives, a lot of things that I want to see and I hope I will see. And I think I already see some of this is way up here. And so my enthusiasm way outweighs the downsides. But I want to share these downsides with you because that's what I do here on this channel. Now, before we get started, because I'm going to change the camera screen out and all that. Yeah, that's the Wellington Army starter set. Okay, so before I go through all the photos that I've got and kind of take a look at that, and then we'll go into all my concerns that I have on the table, I want to let you know that my Waterloo project updates that are coming out on a regular basis, and I'm currently almost finished with my Quatre Bras 28 millimeter collection. I am going to pivot, and we're going to start doing what's called an epic Waterloo project. Basically, I am going to still continue on with my 28 millimeter project, but I'm not going to go beyond Quatre Bras into Waterloo at 28 millimeter. I was planning on doing like a ton of 28 millimeter units, but with the sale of Front Rank to Gripping Beast, and with the emergence of the Epic Black Powder Waterloo, which I've been waiting for over a year, it's time for me to pivot. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So that is the Black Powder box set, great. That is, I'm glad they get, okay, because I'm a tradesman, I suppose, because I own a store. What they have done is they've provided me with photos already. I don't have to take screenshots, because that's what I was going to do, is go take screenshots. I won't have to do that. I can just use these photos they've provided when I put these online to sell. I did order a bundle. When I get it in, those are going to go up on my site, minus the ones I pull for myself because, hey, you know. That's Sarissa. I don't think it says it anywhere on here, but it is. It's a Sarissa precision model. Sarissa doesn't make 13.5 millimeter buildings. They make 15 millimeter buildings. So this is obviously going to be a 15 millimeter building, which means it's going to be too big, right? It's going to be large, which I struggle with already when it comes to terrain being too big for the model, the units, because a man on a stand doesn't represent one man. A model on a stand could represent like 120 guys, Napoleon's battles. And in that case, the footprint on the table doesn't represent a 5-foot circle. It represents hundreds of feet. So when you take a model of terrain and you put it on the table, it represents a much larger footprint. Now, luckily, Black Powder doesn't treat individual buildings as individual buildings because Black Powder is not a skirmish game. This building represents a cluster of buildings. So having a larger footprint is okay because you're looking at a town sector, a unit a building that a battalion can actually occupy. So what I usually do is put fences around it, or I make a bespoke base for it that I can put it on to give it a town sector appeal. So I'm not too upset about that, actually. But when it comes to Hougoumont and La Haye Sainte, I kind of am. So let's get into it. Let's keep going. Okay, so here's a cavalry sprue. Wellington's British Cavalry. And infantry, it looks like. We got Wellington's starter set. Okay, so I can get pretty close without that's as close as I can get, without losing too much of the detail. But we already know we've got Scots Greys up here. There's 4 of them on a sprue. You know that you're going to put more than 4 Scots Greys on a stand. My understanding is a cavalry stand has 5 models. So if they give you 5 of those sprues, you'll be able to make 4 stands. If they give you 4 of those sprues, you won't. You'll be able to make 3 stands, and you'll have an extra figure. So I'm not sure exactly how many sprues they give you. I could go through and count the artillery, and then we could figure out exactly how many sprues you get. But you can see this barrel is a little bit longer, right, than this one. So it looks like you're getting a 6-pounder and a 9-pounder. The heavy cav has the 6-pounder, it looks like, and the light cav looks like it has a 9-pounder. Okay, that's kind of interesting. And you can see that these wheel poses are all different. So what that tells me is I can pick and choose which ones I put on which stand. So I could put one of these with one of these, and then I could go back and put one of these with one of these, or I could put these 2 together, or I could put these 2 together, or I could put this and this, or that and this. So basically, there's I don't know what the ratio is, but with 4 figures, and there's only 2 choices per stand, that's 2, 4, 8, 16 different options. If I'm doing my math right, that's 16 different options for combinations. That's fine. That's way more than I'm going to probably need for horse artillery. These guys are your dragoons. They give you, okay, those are not dragoons. Looks like 10 dragoons. So if they give you 5 sprues, which is what I'm thinking, they're going to give me 5 sprues, which is going to give me 4 stands of grays. That's going to give me 50. That's going to give me 50 dragoons, which is 10 stands. I don't know. I could be wrong though. I can definitely be wrong. And then they give you 6 household. And then we're looking at Shako hussars or light dragoons. Light dragoons. Because the hussars look like they have the dolmens. Like that guy's got a dolmen. He's got a dolmen hanging off of him. So these are definitely hussars. You got some trotting and then you got some standing. So there's some options there. Those are dolmens as well. These guys are turned around, so I think they're light dragoons. Wait, I thought there was Busbies. Okay, these guys here are Busbies. It's not a lot of Busbies. That's 2 Busbies. Yep, that's not a lot of Busbies. Okay. And then on the infantry side, we got your brigadier, right? My understanding is you have 10 units of 4. So, and that's 1 unit, 2, 3, 4. So, and well, these guys down here look like they're 95th rifles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to get 10 of these sprues, right? That's going to get you 10 artillery pieces, but I don't see any variation of what they're going to look like. And they look like 9-pounders as well, which is fine. I mean, at that scale, it's so small. Okay, so you see these standards right here. That actually, okay, hold on now. Those standards look way longer than the ACW standards poles. So maybe 15 millimeter guys will fit on that. I'll have to wait until we see them. Yeah, we'll have to wait till we see them to see if a 15 millimeter flag will go from the bottom of the spear to the top of the hand. I could pull out a ruler and we can measure 13 millimeters to there, and then we could try to figure out how many millimeters that is. We'll do that on a future video. These guys are, and I'll show them off in another picture when we get a zoom in, a different look at them. But you don't see a standard bearer. You don't see, that might be a sergeant, I'm not sure. But yeah, you don't see a standard bearer, which is fine. The 95th doesn't need to be carrying a standard. And they've got stovepipes. So that means they can portray a bunch of different units. And I'll go into that as well as we talk about model. Oh yeah, it won't let me advance unless it's zoomed all the way out. Okay. So this is the starter set that I was talking about, right? Okay. And they have them ordered in units of 4. And so that looks like it's the standard size for a unit is 4. What's good about that is you can make a square. Pretty darn tootin', right? 1 base per side. Yeah. Okay. Now, in the Battle of Waterloo, there were 2 battalion strength 95th rifle units. They fought as close order like this. And there was a small 95th rifles, and they fought close order like that as well. Except a couple of companies were dispatched to fight in the sand pit, but most of the 95th Rifles fought as a battalion. So they didn't fight as... I know I've heard a lot of people complaining on other videos that, oh, they're not in skirmish, boo-hoo. I don't care about any of that. What I do care about is there are no British skirmishers at all. Because the British have the ability in Black Powder 2 that I use normally, which might be different in Epic, that battalions can deploy skirmishers in front of their units. I don't have a problem at this scale with a token that tells me that they have skirmishers deployed. I don't need to see a stand out in front representing a skirmisher, because what happens with that skirmisher? You don't shoot at them. You shoot at the unit. It gives the unit a defense modifier. You don't you don't melee them, because if you charge, they immediately deploy back into the battalion. So there's no other reason than to simulate a skirmisher screen in front. So what that means is I could take a base, right? I could put some random British flank guys on it in skirmish formation, and I could use it as a token that I put in front of my unit saying that they have skirmishers deployed. It's a skirmisher symbol, or a skirmisher token, status situation. You don't need to have skirmisher figures. Having said that, the French do. So I don't know what the rules are like. Okay, we're gonna have to figure that out. Okay, but look at that. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We already knew that. And because of that, you see 10 stands of 95th Rifles, because there's 10 sprues. Each sprue having a battalion and 1 stand of 95th Rifles. I'm okay, and whatever. I don't want okay, now the concern that I have is the 95th don't have their own sprue that they could sell separately as just 95th, but they've included them in the starter box, which just the starter box, that's all the 95th Rifles you'll ever need, ever. 2.5 battalions, that's all you need. So when I go buy more British, I'm going to be saddled with more 95th Rifles. And I'm just going to constantly build up a collection of 95th Rifles, which I've got a solution that we'll go into in a minute. Now, remember when I was talking about, this is another 15 millimeter model that's supposed to represent one building. Maybe it doesn't represent a town sector, and because it's so many buildings, you know, because I would consider a stable and a servants' quarters and maybe a pantry and also the manor house for the farm, I would consider that to be a town sector. So in this case, it would be okay, because you wouldn't, because normally what I do is I put a building in the middle. Like I said, I put fencing around the outside so I can put units just outside the building, but they would be inside the little farm, the town sector. Where in this case, I would not make fencing around the outside edge. I would just use the walls as the outside edge and put units on the inside. So I think that works pretty good. And then there's the apple trees that they sell separately. Yeah, so this could be one town sector, right, that you deploy inside of. So I guess that building's not too bad. But this shows 2 battalions deployed inside this one town sector. Normally that's not allowed, so we got to figure out how Epic's going to resolve that. These guys have those breastplates, and they have that little red soft cloth underneath the Dragoon body, and these guys have the kind of the same thing, but they've got a different head, and they got some. These are all standing, where the Crossiers are all charging, and then the Dragoons. I'm not seeing very many Okay, that's a musician right there. Is that also a musician? It looks like it is. Okay, we're going to talk about flags in a bit as well. I'm just going through the pictures right now, but we are going to go through the flags. If these are 12 to 13 millimeter flags, and my 15 millimeter flags are too big for the flagpoles, I've got an answer for that. We'll get into that in a bit. Plus, one of the reasons why I would want to use 15 millimeter like GMB flags is because of the battalion fanions. We'll get into that. The battalion fanions should be smaller, I thought, than the regimental flags. Okay, now this is the one I have issue with. The figures are 13s. The building is 15, but it's also a giant model. So I'm going to have to consider breaking that down. I was already going to do that in my 28 millimeter game anyway, but I'm going to have to consider breaking that down into multiple town sectors. I'm personally thinking this backside is one town sector, and this front side is one town sector, and then the outside is another town sector. So it's basically got 3 town sectors, could hold 3 battalions. This is showing they're deploying, and it's a 1-to-1 scale, right? So that you got a whole battalion here. You know, if I put like 15 more battalions in there, it'd be fine. I disagree with that. And then they're showing 6 models here as a Voltigear skirmisher stand. I think that works fine. I can make a stand. I could put some British Center Company guys on there, or 95th Rifles, and put them out in front, and just say that battalion is skirmishing. Now, they're wanting me to think that this is a standard battalion, which looks really good. 4 stands, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But these guys are only in 2 stands. So I know this just thrown out there for scale and for pictures and all that. We got 4 stands here, 4 stands there. Man, this place is surrounded. But I believe these 2 together represents a battalion. Because if you look in, you've got your Voltigears here and you got your Grenadiers there. And you'll notice that there are 6 models of Grenadiers and 6 models of Voltigears. Just like that out front, 6 models. And then they paint the center companies, on there, the 4 center companies, along with these flank companies. And then when you scroll over, we've got Voltigears and Grenadiers here. I don't see a flag standard, but I do there. So that was just someone putting a bunch of models out to make it look like, to make it look cool, basically. But I do believe that this should be a march column, in my opinion. And this should be their attack column. And then putting them all straight out in a row would be line. Now the British could form a formation like this, and they would call that a 4-rank line. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Okay. Yeah, and so I think that's too many units, because I think you just put a battalion in there and they're considered to be occupied. Like I would put one stand here, one stand there, one stand there. But if they're allowing like this front to be one building and this side to be one building, then maybe this is a 4 town sector occupied building. Now, the problem that I have with this building is it's a huge, right? On the table, you're looking at like a 2-foot building from front to back, right? 2 feet. When I get it in and I assemble it, we'll figure it out. But if it's 2 feet on the table, well, first of all, that's pretty dominant on a table. But if I'm trying to play Waterloo, or at least a big portion of Waterloo, that building is too big. It's too big. It would occupy, like, let's say I've got a 6-foot wide table. That's a third of the width of the table. That means when I deploy my French, they're going to be within 1.5 feet of Hougoumont. And when I put the British on the back, they'll be within 1.5 feet, which I guess isn't too bad if I half all the scales of all the ranges and everything, and the movement and everything. So let's talk about units, right? I've got this website that I use for my 28 millimeters. Great. I'm going to buy multiple starter sets because I want to do more than just 10 British units. I want to do, because like 4 battalions might be a brigade. So that box set represents a division. Really, it's a division, because you're going to have 4 British, maybe, and then maybe 4 Hanoverians. Notice that's 12. With a box set, you're getting 10 plus the 2 95th. That's 12. And then you also get some more 95th. So I pull up the Hanoverian troops because I want to show a few things. Let's look at the Grubenhagen battalion. Grubenhagen are Hanoverian light infantry. I know it showed it underlined, but they wear a stovepipe, just like the 95th. They have some of these soft caps, which I noticed the 95th sprue had some guys in soft caps. The 95th plume might be too big, but there's nothing, they're plastic, so you can just trim them down if you want, or you can leave them big like that. Right. Okay, so there's a whole battalion that you could do with your extra 95th rifles. What about Lüneburg? We just looked at Grubenhagen. Lüneburg, also the same. Now they've got the tall plume, so there's no snipping needed. Yeah, they're going to look very similar to your 95th rifle guys. Not exact, but that's okay. Paint jobs at 15, or I should say at 13 millimeters, you're not going to really see all the little details. My understanding is there are a lot of details on these models, but because they're plastic, should be no problem converting. Okay, so out of the line infantry, those are really the only two. Let's take a look at the Bremen. Okay, now Bremen are not their light units. They're considered just their regular field unit. But they still wear the shako, the stovepipe. So you could do these guys. Paint some of them with red, some of them with green. Blue pants, yeah. Now, my point with that is, in that case, in the Bremens, right? Let's just go back to these guys. I personally would probably use a British sprue for the command, because then you're going to have the two flags. You're going to have a drummer. You're going to have, but in this case, maybe not. Maybe you don't need. See, they even use the British, and they got some soft caps. You know, I don't know. I expect one of the first expansions is probably going to be Hanover. Okay, so let's go back even more. Okay, so now let's look at the Jaegers. Look like 95th rifles to me. I mean, they're not exact, but like I said, at this scale. And then we can go to the, let's get rid of the line and the light. So if you go to the Landwehr, it's the same story, right? So let's take I don't know, one that's actually involved in Osterode. Look at that, stovepipes. So a lot of the Hanover units used stovepipes. So there's no reason why you can't convert those 95th rifle guys that you have a million of into some of these Hanovers. Now, not all of the Hanover guys use stovepipes. Let's look at Osnabrück. All soft caps? Okay, that doesn't make sense. But Kallenberg, British. Yep, they look just exactly like a British regiment. So there's no reason why you couldn't. And they're carrying a standard. No reason why you can't take one of your British units, use it as 95th. Or not, Hanover. So I look at it this way. I don't even count the 95th rifles. I just say you get 4 battalions and a battalion of stovepipes. 4 Belgic Shakos, 1 stovepipe. So I could easily make British and Hanover out of the Belgic Shakos and Hanover out of the stovepipes. So I have no problem doing that. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go to the United Kingdom, right? We don't have any Highlanders. I expect that to come out as well. There's probably, just like the Zouaves box, there's probably going to be a Highlander box. And that's good because you're going to have the Gordons, the Camerons, and the Black Watch, right? And so I think that's right. Gordon Cameron. Yeah, I think that's great. And look at all these regiments. Okay, there's the Cameron Highlanders. I don't know about these 78s. I'll have to take a look at that. But then you got the Black Watch and the Gordon. Yep, right there. So if a box, like they'll call it a brigade box of Highlanders, it'll probably come with 3 units, and those are the ones that I would do. It's just, and then I probably could get 2 of those boxes and then do a couple of other Scott units, but you don't really need to, because you can, some of these other Scots, like the Royal Scots, I don't think they wore kilts. I think they're still in their, their dealio. Okay, back to United Kingdom. Okay, Guard Infantry. Let's just go Coldstream. It's just regular British uniforms, just painted with a little bit differently. So you can do all the guard. You can do pretty much all the line. Okay. Let's take a look at something. The 50... Nope, not line. Light. Let's take a look at the 52nd. No. Yes. 52nd. Stovepipes. So I could technically use my 95th rifles and make them the 52nd. Right? Now these guys have standards, so that might, as opposed to me, I don't have any standards. No, they have standards, so that might be a little more difficult because, conversions and then all the cavalry. Now let's take a look at KGL. There's brigades full of King's German Legion. Let's just go to a 5th battalion. Look at that. Looks like British. Pretty much all the British, Hanover, United Kingdom, all of those are going to be able to be modeled. But when you start okay, maybe even Holland. Let's take a look at Holland, line infantry. Let's look at the 7th Belgian infantry, because that's a Quatre Bras. Oh, look at that. British. Looks just like the British. Stovepipe, not stovepipe, but the Belgic Shako and all. Now, I don't know. You're not gonna. I didn't see any sappers on any of the sprues, so that's no big deal. But yeah, good deal. So you're going to be able to even do some of your Belgian guys. Light infantry, flanker battalion. Okay, whatever. Let's take a look at the 27th Dutch. Looks kind of like French to me. Right? Except for the long pants. Yeah. No, we don't see any of these like orange belts and stuff, so I probably will not do I'll probably not do the Dutch Belgians initially, because I'm hoping that they'll come out with an expansion for Dutch Belgians. Okay. Same thing with Nassau. But if you needed to, you could proxy some of your French as some of the Dutch. Okay. Okay. So that's my solution for the type of figures you get. Okay. Now this next chapter, what we're going to talk about is the price change, and not much more. Just we're going to go briefly over this. It is not a huge change, and I think it's more of a conversion rate from pounds to US dollars more than anything else. But I noticed it when I did my pre-order, because when you do a pre-order, they give you like a spreadsheet and they show you all the different units and their prices. Right? And so I go through and I usually select like which units I want and stuff like that. Where in this case, there was a bundle. There's two bundles, actually. There's the mega bundle, and then there's this smaller bundle. And it's for retailers, so it's different than what you see on the screen here. But not much different, but it is different. And the prices are a little bit different. And what's included in the packages are different, because it's set up for a retailer to resell, so it's not like someone's personal collection. Like if I buy the bundle, I'm gonna get a bunch of things that I don't need as a player, but as a retailer, I'm gonna need to sell. Okay, so but that's where I noticed the price change. Sorry for that little long rant, but you'll notice that if you get both of these, the price did not change. It actually is $2 cheaper than if you buy them individually, because these were $144, and then that would have been $288. So it would have been exactly the same as buying one of these or one of those, and then you would get the 2 free figures. But now they're $145. Okay, so they're $1 more. Oh my gosh, the world is coming to an end. Okay. Sorry. So $145, that's great. For the amount of figures you get, we already showed you how many figures you're getting. You're getting 10 battalions of British and 2.5 battalions of 95th, and like 10, maybe 8, something like that, or maybe 6 to 8 battalions of cavalry. I'm looking at a whole British division plus for $145. That's crazy. That's crazy good. That's crazy good. Okay, so now you can get the other bundle, which is get 3 of these and your army. Basically, these are like extra brigades to really flesh out your army, which I don't think you need. Being honest, I think just buying 1 box and getting 1 division is pretty squared away. And if I need to do a corps, which I'm going to need to do multiple corps, I just count the divisions and multiply how many boxes I need. So if I need to do, let's say, Rial's corps, 2nd Corps, with Foy, Jerome, Waterloo, and Pyre, right? All I need to do is get 4. I don't even need to get 4 because the cavalry is already included. So all I need to do is get 3 boxes of the, or maybe 2 boxes, and then maybe fill it in with some brigade models. And I've got a whole corps. So I'm looking at like $300, right? 145 plus 145. So 300 plus a couple of battalions, so, or brigades. So maybe 360, something like that. So for 360, I have the entire corps, where I sell my battalions for 200 plus bucks for 1 battalion, painted, that is. So for the cost of 2 battalions, I'm getting an entire corps. That's outstanding. Okay, so these prices, I don't think these changed. 264 looks familiar, but scrolling down even further, my brigade box sets, they're now $39. So they're $1 cheaper than were advertised earlier. So 3 of these would actually, I would get 3 of these, 3 plus probably. I'm getting 3 plus. Well, we'll just call it 3. And 1 each of these. I'm getting light and heavies, or these 2 actually. So a total of 5 boxes, right, at $39. I'm going to call it 40. So 40 times 5 is $200. And this is only $145. Plus, you're getting the book and you're getting a building. So this set is way better than buying 3 of these, or 5 of these, I should say. 5 of these. It's not better than buying 3 of those, because that would be $120, right? But it is still better. It's just it's a no-brainer. You got to get the starter box. These prices, I think this was 42, I think, or maybe 45, something like that. It went up to 48. That's okay. And this 96 actually stayed the same. I went to Sarissa to find their 15 millimeter Huguenot model. Could not find it. I found their 28 millimeter model. Did not find their 15. They might have, and this is just me speculating based on the other units, other companies. Sarissa might have said, well, we only have like 100 of these in inventory, so let's just give them all to Warlord and then take it off the website because people are going to want it and they're not going to be able to get it because for the next 3 months or 4 months, we're going to be cranking these out and sending them to Warlord. So my guess is that they stopped production on their own website for the 15 millimeter Huguenot and is producing it for Warlord. Now, they used to have this Waterloo box set of buildings on Sarissa, which they had like the church at Plans Noir. They had the Papillotte La Haye farm. They had the La Haye Saint. They had the Huguenot. And they had the Bell Alliance, right? Well, you're getting the Bell Alliance model in every starter set. You're getting, you can get the La Haye Saint and the Huguenot. So all you need to do is get the other two, which is the Papillotte Church and the farm at, not Papillotte, the Plans Noir. The Papillotte La Haye farm is another building you got to get. Other than that, scattered buildings here and there is really all there is, and you'll have all the buildings you need, really. Okay, actually, that's not really true. You're going to need a ton of buildings if you plan to do Plans Noir, because that's really a city. It's a large town, very big town. So you would need, now you're not doing individual buildings again. Remember, you're doing town sectors. So you'd probably need about 6 more buildings for that. I'm just doing math in my head. Okay, now these apple trees are exactly what you would need for the orchard outside of La Haye Saint. Now I think that price changed. I think it was $9 before, $9.40 or something like that. That's gone up $1. And then this I think has stayed the same. And you would only need one of these. And even then, I don't think you need either one of those models. And the roads and the water. How much water is on the Waterloo map? A lot. If you look down at the Plans Noir area, there's a bunch of rivers going through there, and bridges. So that's something to consider. But on the British and French side, there's none. There's no rivers at all. And roads, yeah, you're going to need a ton of roads. So basically there's one going straight up the center of the map. There's one going across the British line, and then there's another one that angles past Huguenot. So, and there's other little trails and stuff like that, but they're inconsequential in my opinion. Nobody's going to be, and all the roads are inconsequential because you're not going to be doing any march columning up any of these roads. That's not something you're going to do at Waterloo because you're already starting so close together. Everybody's deployed, ready to fight. Roads are not going to be that important. You could just symbolize the roads with maybe some hedges or some fence lines or something like that. You don't need a bunch of roads. What I'm going to do is make a battle map and paint the roads onto the battle map. And we'll be talking in the future about scale of battle maps and what scale I'm going to need to be able to do how much of this Waterloo. And when we get to the base scales, that'll go into more of that. Okay, so price changes, not that big of a deal, not too huge. Okay, now let's talk about flags a little bit. I've got some things that I want to set up, and that's going to be those are each going to be their own chapter. But I have some GMB 15 millimeter flags. I got some Hanoverian flags, and I've got some Brunswicker flags. These flags are, first of all, the GMB flags for Hanover are really big, but they're not as big for the Brunswickers. They're about 2 millimeters smaller for the Brunswickers. I don't have any 15 millimeter GMB British or French flags. I'm going to get some in so that I can compare them to the flags that come with the starter set, because the starter set comes with a full selection of flags. It comes with more flags than you'll probably need. Every regiment seems like it's included, so there's no real need to get any other types of flags. It's just that in the past, in the 28 millimeter scale, and I don't know how this is going to be in the Epic box, but in all their other box sets that include flags, the flags are photorealistic flags, meaning they are not photographs, but they're put on this film, this photo paper kind of stuff. And when you start molding it around your flagpoles, they almost always tear and rip. They don't come apart. I mean, the image tears and rips. And when you go to put a flag wave into your fabric, right? Those waves tear and rip at the paint job of the flag, and they're pathetic. They're the worst, right? So I try not to ever use the flags that are included with Perry or Warlord because of that reason. But desperate measures mean I'll have to take some desperate actions. So I might actually use those and not put that big of a wave. And if it's only cracking around the flagpole, I can always touch that up with a little bit of blue or red or white or whatever I need to touch it up with. So that's not going to be too big of a deal. But the issue is all these odd flags that I'm going to need that are not included in the box set, like Hanover or I guess really it's just Hanover, and the British, because the French fanions. I don't like the fanions that are included with the starter set because there's nothing written on them. They're just a color of fabric, right? And I always thought that the regiment was printed on the flag, like a 1 or a 108 or a 72 or whatever it is, was always on the fanion. I could be wrong. I'm going to have to do some research on that, but it doesn't matter because if I get 15 millimeter GMB flags for the fanions, I'm going to have to research and see what they actually provide, which I believe they provide all their 28 millimeters in 15, but I could be wrong. In that case, they're going to be 15 millimeter flags But luckily fanions are smaller than actual standards, so there should be no problem putting those fanions on. But if there is any kind of flagpole issue, then what I'll do is I'll use my spears, right? Because I've got these spears. I'll just cut them down to the right size. I'll cut the plastic standards completely off, drill a hole in their hand, slide the metal in there, and then my 15 millimeter battalions will all have these metal standards, which I might do anyway because I don't like those flimsy little flexible plastic flags that'll just poop break off at some point. I think I want to do that with all of my standards anyway. And if that's the case, which I think I'm going to do, I'm at like 90% odds that I'm going to do this. If that's the case, then it doesn't matter. I could use a 28 millimeter flag. Just have this little figure base, a giant flag. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do, but 15 millimeter, I think I can do. It'll look more epic because the flag will be giant. Not much gianter, right? It'll be like 1.5 millimeters bigger. So what is that? 10% bigger. It'll be 10% bigger. It'll be this size, right? It'll be this size. And this is not that big. Really, and it's going to look better on the battlefield. Flags always make units look better. They just do. So if I have like a junk looking flag that I bought from, $1 from Joe down the street, or if I get some professional making my flags, I'm going to go professional because I want the flags to look pretty. That's why I stopped printing my own flags, because my printers never look as good as the flags that I buy. So, and plus my color's not working very good anyway. And so, and the color, that's another thing. My colors never come out exactly the color they're supposed to be. So, and I lose a lot of this detail resolution. So I'm going to buy some GMB flags, not a whole lot, just probably the entire Battle of Waterloo. I'm going to have them sitting there waiting to go. And when I get my first box in, that's probably going to be one of the first things I check, is to see how big those flagpoles are. Does a 15 millimeter flag fit on it? If not, swap out the flags for some spears. If they do fit, then no biggie. Then then in that case, if they do fit, then I might or might not swap out the flagpoles just for speed and effort and wastage of spears and stuff. So I might just go ahead and use them. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Okay, so that's the flags. Now I've seen some people, before I finish the flags, there's a couple of YouTubers out there that, or maybe it's just one, that says use 10 millimeter flags. Nope, not going to do that. 100% not going to do that. The 10 millimeter flags are going to be way too small. It's almost like, why bother putting a flag on? If there was a company out there making 12 millimeter flags, then I might consider it. If there's one out there making 13.5 millimeter flags, I'll definitely consider it. But I think I want to go bigger, because size matters. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is assembly. And this is going to be fairly quick. This will be another quick chapter. Glue costs, right? Doing my 28 millimeter models, and I'm talking about Warlord, Perry, Front Rank, Victrix, all of these guys that have been doing in 28 millimeter. You have to glue an arm on. You have to glue a head on, a backpack, sometimes a rifle in their hand, or, cannons. You got to put the barrel, and you got to put the little handholds in the barrel. You got to put the barrel on the trunnion. You got to put the wheels on the trunnion. You got to put the little caisson box in the carriage and all that. So there's a bunch of glue being used and time being used to assemble that model. Now, jumping into Epic, there's no gluing. Heads, arms, bodies, done. It's all done. Even on the horses. The bodies are already attached to the horses. Done. There's no assembly except for putting them on the bases, which you do anyway, right? But the artillery is only like 3 pieces. You got the barrel and the carriage, and then you got the 2 wheels with all their crew. Boom. So assembly using whatever glue that you're using, DAP Rapid Fuse, you're using Gorilla Glue, you're using Sure Grip or E6000 or whatever you're using, I'm going to save a ton of money. Because I think, this is just me thinking, I'm going to be able to do an entire battalion using only a few drops of glue. No, not battalion. Division. I'm going to do a whole division, which might have like 10 cannons. What is that? Like 20 drops of glue? I'm going to save a ton of money. Now, how much time am I going to save? Doing one battalion, assembly, arms, backpack, all that, heads, all that stuff, usually takes me 1 day. In Epic, I'm going to be able to do an entire division in minutes. So assembly, glue, all that, I save a fortune. I'm an eBay store. I assemble models and I sell them, and usually I factor into my price, my painting cost, also the assembly time. So if I was to paint and sell these Epic battalions, that whole assembly time is going to just save my customers a ton of money. Personally, I'm probably going to be able to paint an entire brigade in a day for my and what does that mean for selling them? The prices for a battalion right now include probably 2 days of labor, the assembly and the painting, and maybe basing. So I'm including like 3 days of labor in the cost of 1 battalion of Napoleonics or American War of Independence or any of that stuff. So if you go Epic, if I go Epic, or if my customers go Epic, prices are going to come way down because the cost of the plastic is going to be way down. The assembly time, I almost said gold cost. The gold cost is going to be way down. So, and with inflation the way it is right now, here, especially in the US, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. Okay, so that's assembly costs. The next thing I want to talk about is my Old Glory compared to these Epics. Now, I'm going to just assume that the Epic models are 15 millimeters to the top of their heads, because 13.5 to the eyes, to me, that tells me 15 millimeter to the top of the heads. From the top of the base to the top of the head. Okay. Now these guys are British. Okay, I got to put my eyes on. It says British Napoleonic Infantry number 11. I'm looking at them, and guess what? They're all stovepipes. Okay, so, and I think, and this guy's got a dolman, so I think these are all 95th rifles. But they could be, like I said, Hanoverans. Okay, so I just took this guy who's, okay, this guy's standing and shooting. This is probably the best option for measuring. Now, I'm not going to use that right away. Well, the top of his stovepipe is 20 millimeters. Everybody's got a different pose, but which I really like that as well. But these would also be great for skirmishers, right? Because I'm only going to put 6 figures on a base, and I'm only using the base as a token. That's how I think I'm going to do it. Okay. They're not going to actually be deployed on the battlefield. Those are going to be tokens. Okay, so yeah, if a guy is 13 millimeters, now I'm not zooming in, this is just me commentating. If a guy is 13 millimeters to his eyes, we'll use this kind of as a guide for you at distance. These lines are 10 millimeters. And so that would be a 15 millimeter to the top of his head, right? So, but with a stovepipe and so, okay, now, with a stovepipe and everything else, it's probably going to be just a slight bit more. We'll add 1 millimeter. Okay, so that would be the size of an epic ACW figure. We're going to have to get the Napoleonic guys in because the ACW guys are wearing kepis, right? Or soft caps. They don't have these giant shakos. So let's go 13.5 to an eyeball. How about that? Okay, so that's foot to eye, and that is how Warlord is measuring their I moved it, but that's okay. Wanted to put a little extra weight on there so it didn't actually move around on me. Okay, so let's take a look. Foot to eye. Okay, foot to eye, this guy is 15 millimeter. Okay, I got a marker, but I want a pen. Okay, here's a pen. Okay, so like I said, it is about 1.5 millimeters. It is about 1.5 millimeters taller. Now, I've heard people say that they can elevate their epic models above the base, right? Like they'll put some putty or something underneath the bases to lift the bases up so their heads would be even with these guys. I don't know if that's really necessary. I mean, 13.5 and 15 millimeter, counting the shakos. If I imagine cutting the shako off, he would probably be about 18 millimeters tall. Yeah. Okay, so these Old Glory 15s seem to be true 15s, so they're going to be a little bit taller than my Epic Waterloo guys. But if I use like these kneeling guys and guys leaning over blowing a horn or advancing, like running, like this guy, he's like seriously running, then the height's not going to be yeah. Well, now this guy from foot to eye is 13 millimeters. It's just that he's more in a running position. And the kneeling guy, obviously, he's only 10 millimeters tall. So I'm going to have to pick and choose which ones that I use. Or I'll have to make units of just metal as opposed to the plastics. I can't intermix them in the unit. I don't see any standard bearers in here. These guys have got to be the 95th Rifles. Okay, so that's it for the figure scale. We're going to revisit that once I actually get the models in and see how they compare. Because if their base sprue piece, the piece that glues onto the base, if it's thick, then or if I elevate it, it might give an illusion that those figures are actually taller than they are because they'll be standing on a hill, right? Or I could take some of these guys and cut off their base, bringing them down, but I don't want to do that just because it's more work than it's necessary. Having said that, have you ever been in the world? Have you ever seen people in this world? There are people that are 5'9", and there's also people 6 feet tall, right? So all your metal miniatures are 6 foot, and all your epic are 5'9". So there's no problem with that. All right, guys, I've decided because I've got so much to talk about on bases, I'm going to separate that into another video because this video has been going on very long. I've been recording quite a bit. Even with the edits, I'm sure it's going to be a long video. So I'm going to make another video with base sizes. Come back and check that out.